The Evil Dead trilogy is probably one of the most famous horror movie trilogies out there, in part because of Sam Raimi's extremely unusual style of filmmaking and his penchant for mixing genuine horror elements with extreme camp and over the top comedy. Though what's also helped its reputation along is the fact that all three movies are actually considered good, with not a bad one of the bunch. And today, I'd like to quickly go over all three movies in the original Evil Dead series and explore both their good qualities and how I personally felt about each one. And now would probably be a good time to give my obligatory spoiler warning. So if you haven't seen any of these movies yet and don't want to know what happens, you shouldn't proceed with this video. And let me just clarify that I will only be looking at the original three Sam Raimi directed Evil Dead movies in this video. No remakes or spin-offs will be mentioned or considered here. Alright, so with all of that out of the way, there's the original 1981 movie that started it all, The Evil Dead. Now, considering it was made on a shoestring budget with a fresh out of film school Sam Raimi, it's really no wonder why most consider it to be the least notable of the three. Not necessarily because it's bad, but just because it feels pretty low budget in nature and is by far the most conventional horror movie of the trilogy, with almost none of Raimi's signature camp or comedy to be had. But all that being said, it does still make for an effective horror movie at that. I mean, between the gore, implications of something evil lurking around every corner, and Ash continually reacting in complete horror to all his friends and loved ones becoming possessed by horrible monsters all around him, it's a movie that's definitely not for the faint of heart, and could even keep the bravest among us sleeping with one eye open. My point is, for his directorial debut, Sam Raimi actually did a pretty good job with this movie, especially when it comes to scaring the heck out of the audience. Because let's face it, the concept of the Deadites is a pretty horrifying one, and Raimi milks that for all it's worth to great effect. And next we have The Evil Dead 2, Dead by Dawn. Considered by some to be the greatest horror comedy ever made, Sam Raimi took advantage of a bigger budget to build on everything he had set up in the original movie, but rather than make a traditional horror movie sequel like most would expect, Raimi instead embraced his unusual style of filmmaking full throttle. Diving headfirst straight into camp mode, Raimi plays up the threat of the Deadites for both horror and comedy in equal measure, making for perhaps one of the most intentionally campy horror movies ever made. Again, it may not be for everybody, but considering both its reputation as the greatest movie in the Evil Dead series, as well as one of the greatest horror comedies in general, it seems to have paid off in the end, not only earning the series a huge fan base in the process, but also cementing Sam Raimi as one of the most famous cult directors out there. And if nothing else, one has to give him credit for trying something very different with his sequel, rather than just trying to play off the same scares the original had all over again. To put it simply, The Evil Dead 2, Dead by Dawn is the perfect example of a sequel that manages to both stand out from its original and build on it to make something that feels both familiar and different at the same time. And finally, there's Army of Darkness, which I must admit is my personal favorite of the three. completely letting the comedy and camp fly, and not to mention a gloriously over-the-top performance by Bruce Campbell, this movie manages to raise both the stakes and laughs even when it didn't seem possible by having Ash be transported back in time and having to deal with more deadites as he tries to find a way home. Now, unlike the first two movies, which at least partially played their premises straight, this movie smartly doesn't take itself seriously at all and instead plays up the camp for all it's worth, which was definitely for the best, as some of the situations here could only be played for the ridiculous campy absurdity that it is and lead to results like this. Because once again, it's all absolutely hilarious to behold. As I just said, conventionally it's not the best story ever, but as an intentionally over-the-top campy movie, it couldn't have been any better. Especially because in the end, Ash actually manages to get his happy ending after all. Hail to the king, baby. Indeed. Okay, I think that was everything I had to say on that. So now I'd like to hear what you guys think. Which is your favorite movie in Sam Raimi's Evil Dead trilogy? And how does it compare to what I had to say on it? Please let me know in the comments below. And please remember that you do not have to agree with anything stated in this video just because you watched it. You are entitled to your own opinion on this or any other topic we discuss here. And if you think I've got it all completely backwards, that's absolutely fine. And thank you all for watching. It is all really appreciated. And I hope to see you all next time.